Hey, we're talking to Wes Blake. Up next on Geek Out is saying, if you haven't subscribed to us and click on like. Welcome back to Geek Out and Say. It's Friday and we're having fun. And we do have a guest for 2019. For the first show in 2019, Wes Blake. Thanks for coming. How's it going?
Yeah, good, doing great. In fact, I didn't think I am your first 2019 guest.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big honor. Thank you very much.
We were like, our New Year's resolution is to bring back the 80s.
Yeah.
And to have more guests.
Yes,
so,
from the 80s, actually.
From the 80s.
Yeah.
So Wes is fulfilling all of that. Wes is going to fulfill all of that for us.
I do what I can.
Then he's going to hook us up with more people, and it's going to be all good.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So, I think the biggest thing is Mahogany Sunrise.
Yeah.
And that was shot here in San Antonio.
100%, yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about what Mahogany Sunrise is, because I've seen the trailer for it. I haven't seen the entire movie yet. I'm going to, because it seems really, really cool. But yeah, tell us a little bit.
So honestly, for starters, it was shot 100% here in San Antonio, and we shot the whole thing in 3 weeks. It was a really tight shoot schedule.
That's crazy.
So I was on set 17 hours a day. So we really, I think, accomplished a lot in a short amount of time with very little budget, just a lot of dedication. But yeah, so I play an IT guy who I have to go down to the valley for a job, and it's picking up very much in the tradition of the 90s caper movies, the Tarantino movies, the Rodriguez movies, Mariachi, all that stuff. I find a bag of money, right? And then I take it and think it's going to be a way for me to get out of my dead-end job and get to my music. I'm a struggling musician.
Of course, because who isn't, right?
Exactly. Everyone has a creative streak.
Everybody.
Yeah, so I take the money thinking it's going to be my salvation, and it just turns out I piss off everybody. I've got like a borderland gang and a big drug dealer and two mafioso types. Like everybody's trying to get this bag of money. Like I really get into the crap deep.
Yeah, and it's not like you have any like expertise or anything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of comedy of errors, kind of. Well, we were saying earlier, Vince was saying it reminds us of like role-playing games from back in the day.
That's a great...
And you kind of get this feeling when you're watching him, like the game master, if you don't know what a role-playing game is, he's like the guy that kind of runs the game and tells you what action's going to happen next. And it's so like this guy will come to a crossroads and you're like, what's the game master going to throw at him now, right? Yeah. Like, how many villains? Roll it!
Yeah, there's a lot of crossroads moments. Like, and I loved it the moment you brought that up, because once you said it, I was like, I totally see that. Just, the whole movie is just...
Here we go.
Yeah.
What's happening to him right now?
Yeah, so it has that really good feel to it. So is the producer and director and everybody is from San Antonio, or is it like a Texas?
Texas-based for sure. So the writer-director is Scott Lisk. It was his first feature film. He's a local guy. Mutt Productions, they're pretty much all local guys. Some of them are kind of, I was going to say bipolar, but they're bi-coastal, but I wanted to get that in there. No, bi-coastal. Some of them are back and forth between LA and here, but they're Texas boys, born and raised, San Antonio boys. The cast was all Austin, San Antonio, and Houston.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it was a good crew, good cast, good people to work with.
I think that's nice, because I don't think that people realize still that there's talent here. I think Austin sometimes gets a lot of play, and it's like, oh, Austin has all the talent and the creatives and everything. But I don't think San Antonio gets as much of the recognition as it should.
Sure.
Especially since there are actually some pretty big movies that were shot here in San Antonio just because of our locale and because of our scenery and because we have what we have available. So I think it's nice to...
There really is a thriving, I used to call it a film community, but it's actually more of a film industry. I always, the distinction was one makes money, one's people hanging out.
Right.
But no, there's people making projects here. Alamo City Studios, there's a lot of talent out of there. We've shot some projects there. My production partner and I, we started New Americana Pictures. And we have a project we're trying to get going first thing next year. We're still in the funding phase, but there's a lot of people that are really serious about bringing just a lot of different types of genres of stories to life here in town with local resources and talent.
Well, I heard one of the Baldwin brothers is here.
Yeah.
Doing stuff.
Got Daniel, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done about at least 2 or 3 projects I've heard of around here.
That's
even
really
out
cool.
Canyon Lake and all in the area.
Uh-huh.
He didn't ask me to be any of them.
Well, you know, you weren't the right age, and you were maybe going to knock over some of the sets, and so that was why they
there is a concern. That is a concern. Pretty much on every project.
So I'm digging at Wes because he told us like how he first got into acting. So I'm gonna have him tell you guys that story. So will you tell them how you first kind of got into acting?
So the story I was telling is I'd always loved the idea of acting, but I was the stage fright guy and didn't want to do it. So finally, I was already like in my 20s, and I decided I was gonna kind of stone up a little bit and go out for a role in the Christmas play for church. And I'm thinking, like I told them, church people can't be mean
like
to you.
It's church, right?
Right, exactly. Like, you know,
everybody's gonna love you.
I've seen some of the stuff they do. I can't be that bad.
Right.
And so I go and I audition, and I'm so excited, and then just silence. Like nobody calls.
Wow.
No one's like,
Crickets.
So I'm like, I'm so bad at church doesn't want me. And a few months later, I get a call, and they say, hey, would you like to play Fietka and Fiddler on the Roof? And I was like, but I did an audition. Like, look, we have your number. You're the right age, and you're a guy. If you just don't knock over the sets, like the role is yours. Like we're just pretty much desperate. And so from there, I did it, and after
that, Wes like, I win, yes.
I was like, nailed it.
I rocked that.
Best audition ever. So I stumbled very much into it.
Yeah.
So.
But then you kind of got the bug after that, and
yeah. So it was funny. Right around the same time, the same little chunk of time. A friend of mine and I decided we were going to make our first film together, which never happened.
Right.
And I was going to go try and really steal talent because I didn't know how to find actors. So there was a group at the time called the Short Ends Project.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a little fun fact, the Short Ends Project was kind of like the 48-hour film project, except for you had a writer's meeting, and then a few weeks later there was the director's meeting where you're assigned a script, and then the third was the casting meeting. So I went to the casting meeting to find talent, and you didn't really have to audition there either. So that's telling me something. The only roles I get are the ones that I have to. But I showed up and I got cast in like 3 short films just for like being there. Because like, you're a guy and you're tall. I meet criteria. I'm a
right,
checklist.
you're like checked off the list.
I'm a checklist actor. And so I got into film that way. And same thing, it just took off.
So did you audition? I didn't ask you. Did you audition for
I did, actually.
Okay.
I had to think about it.
Should I ask?
But yeah, no, I was.
You were like, no. I walked by this dude, and he was like, hey, you look exactly. Will you knock over sets? No.
Yeah.
You're coming with me.
I was buying a Slurpee at the 7-Eleven, and this guy was like, hey, I'll make you famous. I was like, oh, this again.
Okay, I guess.
No, I did audition for that one.
So going back to the movie.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Is I've always liked to know like the different places where things were filmed, and since it was filmed here in San Antonio, what are some of the, big spots that were filmed that we can like see in the movie?
Well, you'll definitely recognize the pig stand.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat.
Oh,
You see it in the
really?
trailer.
You see it in the trailer,
that's right,
yeah,
it
you
is in the
do.
trailer.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is excruciating when you're there on a budget and they're like, you can't actually buy the chicken fried steak and you have to eat a donut. I'm like, I want the chicken fried. But anyways, that's terrible. They have great chicken fried steak if you haven't tried the pig stand.
Go to the pig stand.
And then everyone shoots in Peacock Alley. There's a alley downtown that kind of can play for just about any major metropolitan area, and a lot of filmmakers locally shoot that for a generic alley scene.
Where's that at?
I could never find my way back to it if I had to.
Oh, really?
Downtown.
It's somewhere downtown.
It's downtown.
We'll just randomly run around downtown and film.
But if you Google Peacock Alley,
okay,
you'll
I
find
will, because now I'm curious.
I'm directionally challenged, so.
Well, like we're in this YouTuber group, and so I'm thinking if we knew where some of these filmmakers did stuff, we could maybe up our game a little. Because we're like, oh, let's go to the park in our neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? So if we knew some of this stuff, it might up our production game a little bit.
And so here's another bunny trail, I guess. So like the 48-hour film project I mentioned, we did one year. It was record cold. And the city is kind of like, we know people are going to be running around shooting movies all over, wherever, right? So cops, don't shoot them, right? So I'm running around downtown in the middle of the night with a fake MP5 that looks very real,
Wow.
running past like people on the street. Like it was so. Side note: I'm on the Riverwalk with a big big gun, so don't do that.
Everybody's screaming, and you're like, "It's a movie."
Yeah, exactly. As I lay dying, convincing death scene.
They're like, "Just keep rolling, just keep rolling.
Yeah.
This is good stuff."
Hey, there's an ambulance coming, but keep on it. So.
Live in the pain.
Got an Oscar for that one.
Did y'all do anything on the river for Mahogany Sunset?
I'm trying to remember.
It's so kind of cliche almost, right?
Yeah,
I mean, probably not.
We didn't try to sell it as overtly.
As San Antonio.
Yeah, it was pretty much just one scene where we're supposed to be running for our lives, and you get a glimpse of the tower, I'm pretty sure. And I chuckle because of running for our lives, because here's the thing, man. Nobody told me this. We had to run slow enough for the camera to keep track of us, but I felt like I was doing a little jog. So I was like, well, if I move my body bigger,
right,
it'll look like I'm running faster and add energy to the scene. I look like a moron. So if you're going to watch the movie, I shouldn't have told you that because hopefully you might have missed it. But I look
Now we're going to be laughing and picking that up. We're like, oh, there it is.
I look like a lumbering Yeti. It is just the worst thing ever.
You are an IT guy, so you're not exactly supposed to be the most athletic guy.
It was an acting choice. It was a character choice.
Yeah,
yes.
I believe that.
Thank you. Yes, high five. That's exactly, yeah.
It's what the character would do.
Yeah,
exactly. I run like a gazelle, but this asshole.
This guy eats donuts instead of chicken fried steak. And sits in front of computers all day.
Steak, yeah.
He's like, I don't run. I've seen running in Jurassic Park. But.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the whole time on set I was like, clever girl. But yes, wow. you should. Oh, and so just to kind of like our shameless plug. So Mahogany Sunrise has been digitally remastered in 4K, so it's available for. May I plug it? Right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. That's why you're here.
Yes, good deal. DVD and Blu-ray is available at Walmart.com and Amazon.com, and then you can actually just rent the video on streaming for Amazon Prime. So you can watch it right after this podcast.
Yeah, check it out.
We'll do that, and then we'll do a reaction video because that's what everybody.
And what's the rating for that movie?
It would probably. I don't know if it actually had an official rating. I would probably call it PG-13. If it was R, it would be language.
Okay.
Yeah, because the violence is not too over the top.
Because most of the time it's them chasing you. That's
right. It's just a bunch of like gunfights. There's no like real bloody beating scenes or anything.
Is it like 80s like Transformer G.I. Joe type gunfights where you're shooting at everybody
There's a lot
but
of laser beams.
Nobody dies?
Oh no. Yes. Pew. There's a lot of
everybody is a terrible shot. Like,
there's really not a lot of people who actually get. I think everybody is a terrible shot in this one. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a gunfight at one point doing this with no gun, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's like stormtroopers.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like they're the word. They go through all this training and they can't shoot.
Yes,
still. Like why? Why does this always happen?
They were first day stormtroopers. It was their first day of stormtrooper school camp.
They were like, I'm so scared.
They were fogging up the masks and so.
Yeah. So you are a geek,
too.
And so what are the things you geek out about?
Yeah, so I was the superhero geek before it was mainstream, and so one of the things we were talking about earlier is I was always kind of like closeted. Like I'd have to like feel someone out before I'd be like, oh Kyle Rayner sucks. I'm a total Hal Jordan guy or whatever.
Right.
And now it's just kind of this awesome thing where I can wear my Captain America T-shirts or see the movies I wanted to see because I remember I was like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher or like the old school. Like our selection sucked for a long time.
No, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible, but we were glad to have it.
Yeah,
because at least it was something, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you feel about kind of these epic nerds that are kind of in our age bracket that are like, well, now it's too mainstream, and I like want to be a special snowflake and have like my fandom back and. Do you want that, or are you really enjoying like kind of sharing?
Suck it up, dude! I want my movies. No, I say mainstream it as much as you want because we weren't getting the quality of films back then, and we weren't getting. We had the books, which are fantastic, but I mean, I love being an actor, being a film guy. That's my pet medium. and that's what I want to see it in. And so to see the quality, you know, the way it is, and the storytelling is phenomenal. And the last, you know, the two Guardians films weren't just fun, campy laser shoot 'em ups. I cry at Guardians 2 every freaking time, and I'll admit it. Like, there's so much heart and so much storytelling. And, you know, as an actor, like, that's a dream. That's a dream role, a dream gig. So, yeah, bring it on.
Well, so let me ask you this as an actor, because a lot of people get into this. We feel like we kind of own these stories once we've read them, right? I had a really big problem with Ready Player One because I loved the book, and I cried through the whole film. I hated the film. I just hated it. How much of you as an actor do you take into it when you're into a role? Like, do you get to take in some of who you are and how you feel about the story, and does that kind of play a role in how you play the character?
Yeah, so there's I've been on some projects before where folks were, you know, at this level, we don't have a lot of super crazy method acting, but they were very much, I have to stay in character, and they were very much trying to lose themselves. And I find if I'm going to have any hope of bringing anything natural into it, I need to bring in my reactions to the situation with the knowledge of what the character's going through. So I'm not afraid to bring parts of myself in, and, you know, hopefully it works. I was always kind of more the... you know, you do your scene and like you have your emotional moment and you cry and you spit and snot and whatever, and then they yell cut and you're like, hey, did you hear the one about, you know, it's a little bit more,
right.
I don't need to dwell in that space, but I've been on sets where I've had other actors put me in the corner.
Awesome. I got a couple questions from the audience. Jaber Videos asks, Wesley, what kind of advice would you give someone who wants to pursue acting?
Honestly, you know, to quote Nike, just do it. Right off the bat, don't worry about in the beginning if it's good. Don't worry about if you're getting paid. Don't, like, if you happen to stumble into a good paid project as a first-time actor, good on you, but don't look for it. Go on austinactors.net. Go on Short Film Texas. It's either .com or .org or .something. Short Film Texas. Look at the local universities. Go on, you know, look for gigs on Craigslist, but don't go alone to some of those. Just do it. Just get out there and act and try.
Well, how'd you find this one? For the
Mahogany Sunrise. So I had done a film with several films with a really good friend of mine named Craig Rainey, who's a really talented actor. He's out of Austin, and he plays the guy in the movie with a big booming voice and the bad bleach job.
And that's the next question that they're asking.
Yes, that is crazy.
Is the bad guy's voice in the trailer really that deep in real life?
No, not normally, but he wore looser underwear that day. No, yeah, that was digitally altered. That was the sound guy decided that would be a good thing for, because I mean, if the guy is massive, like I'm 6'1" and he's still
a
bigger dude than I am, and yeah, Craig got me the audition because he was already cast. So. Yeah, he's a great dude. So you follow Craig.
So then I think that's another thing too, is when you're on these projects, and we've talked about this before, is networking. I don't think people do that inherently as much. I think those of us in this age bracket kind of remember it more and do it more. And I think people need to get back to that. It's that networking and making those connections. And like you said, maybe you do a project here or there for a student filmmaker or something and get your name out there and have a portfolio and meet people who know people who know people. It's kind of that.
Yeah. I mean, even you and I have friends in the industry that we didn't know. Knew each other. So now we know, which is really cool. And it's just getting to know people, and you never know who could advance your career.
Yeah. Well, so and honestly, if you are starting out, and like I said, just be working, right? But when you're on set, show up on time, be nice, help out wherever you can. Don't have an ego. When I was first starting out, between takes, there'd be that deal where everyone's sitting around the table and, you know, well, we're all new actors. What do you want to be? You know, how far do you want to take this? And I want to be a movie star, and I want to be famous, and whatever. I want to date Beyonce, whatever it is. Don't be that guy, because a lot of those people faded out. They weren't pleasant to be around. They acted like they were superstars, and we were all just at the same level starting out. So where I'm going with this is be good on set, be nice on set, and you will eventually stop auditioning. I barely audition anymore for most of the stuff I get. I just get a phone call. because I become friends with people, and I think relationships are huge in any industry, but especially in anything entertainment.
I would agree.
How do you get yourself better in the craft of acting? How do you become a better actor?
It is repetition. There's a story that Russell Crowe told that I always thought was really cool. When he was starting out, he wanted to be an actor, couldn't afford acting classes, so he took every job he could until he could finally afford classes, and by the time he could afford them, he didn't need them because he was OJT. He learned in the field. So I mean, you work and you work and you work, and if you have the luxury of taking classes, don't shy away from it. But I've barely taken any classes. If anyone out there is looking for acting tips, I would say this will freak your directors out, but I do it anyway. At rehearsals and table reads, I don't go full out 100%. I don't go in character. I just don't. What I try to do is I go for memorization. I go for the gist of the scene, because when you get into the moment and your scene partner's throwing it at you and really giving you that moment, that real raw moment, you really don't know what's going to bubble up inside of you until you're in the scene. And when it does, you don't want to be like, but no, I'm playing it this way. Go with it. It may be wrong, but you get another take. But you might have a little moment of brilliance because you didn't go in with preconceived ideas. So a lot of directors freak out about that.
Well, no, that's kind of interesting, though. That kind of plays back to the whole role-playing thing that Vince was talking about earlier. I struggle in role-playing games when I have these game masters and these players that are set in their mind of, like, this is the character and this is how it's going to go. And if the game starts to try to go off where it would be, like, on this fun tangent, and they're like, well, no, because it's supposed to be like in this little box. So I see kind of what you're saying in the film too. Like, well, don't put it in that box. And I've seen a lot of actors talking about, I had the best time, or some of the best things happened because we were able to ad-lib.
Oh yeah.
We were watching the after scenes for something just recently, and the actors were talking about that, and they were like, oh yeah, that. Like some icon. Oh, it was Grease. I was watching like the filming of Grease. And some of the like really iconic stuff came from the actors just kind of feeling it in the moment, and they would just say something, and then another one would say something, and it would turn into something else. It was like Frenchie blowing the bubble.
Or the squirt gun.
And then him having the squirt gun, and like some of the quirky little stuff. It was just them being in the moment and being themselves, and then the director was like, "Oh, that was better than what I had planned, so let's run with that and like do it a couple more times."
Yeah, a lot of times your ad-libs make it into the final cut. I was telling the story earlier about how I was in a project where it was the dynamic of the universe this guy was building was all very dark, and everyone was very, I'm a badass and I know it, and I'm Blade, that kind of thing. And I was screwing around, just playing I played my character like an unself-impressed goofball, and so for the next like 10 films, he's like, I like that, so he wrote me to be an idiot. And say what you will, I felt like because of that, good or bad, I was at least different. I stood out from all the other characters that decided to lean into the. That's another piece of advice if I could give it.
Give. That's what.
Whenever you have a role that is written to be super duper obvious, like it's supposed to be this way, for kicks and giggles, think of the exact opposite of what the role is telling you to do, and try that first. I had a role where I was supposed to be playing a 300-year-old vampire hunter, and the role was very self-impressed and tons of vibrato, and there was this line where someone said, you got to get out of town, and I could hear the writer in my head going, we don't run, like inflecting and all kinds of like testosterone spraying off. But I decided I was going to play it like Mufasa from The Lion King, and instead I was like, we don't run. And it was much more, I was like, this guy's not impressed by anything, not even himself. He's 300 years old.
He's 300 years old. Like, what does he care, right?
He's Papa.
Right, right.
So explore that. I think that gives you chances for better, diversity in your performances.
I like that. That's some good advice. You guys should be paying attention out there.
Take notes.
Like, Colleen and I kind of do a lot of stuff off the cuff when we do some of the things like we've done with like Bob the Rangers.
Yeah.
When we've done that, and I've found that sometimes always the script doesn't necessarily go with what you think your character should be. When you start playing, when you get into your character, and you start really understanding how the character would react or speak, in different situations, and then you would just kind of like tweak that just a little bit just to give it that little extra oomph on it to do it. By no means do we act much at all, but
well, I'm a teacher, so I pretty much act every day.
Not me.
Kind of like I'm on the stage every day entertaining the children. So
in any communication with your fellow human being, I think there has to be some element of, other than your loved ones in your own little bubble. I mean, I think there's some performance you're giving to everyone in the general public every day.
Well, and I think that's what a lot of kids don't realize, and we were talking about this earlier too about YouTube.
Yeah.
Is they just think that YouTube is this authentic thing that, somebody just filmed this magical thing that happened and it was the most hilarious thing in the world. Yeah. And I'm like, no, guys, they planned that. They probably wrote it. They practiced it a few times. They probably filmed it a few times. They edited it and added in sound and lighting.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm sorry to ruin the bubble of YouTube, but
that is it. This interview is over.
A 5-minute YouTube clip probably takes them 2 days to set up and shoot and re-edit.
Yeah, it does. I don't think that kids because that's the new job thing, It used to be I want to be a famous actor, and now it's I want to be a famous YouTuber, right?
Sorry, yeah,
but
exactly.
It's kind of still the same thing. Like, even PewDiePie and Markiplier and all the ones that are doing the gaming things, they're still acting. It's still a persona. They're not, like, really like that 100% of the time, like, with their families and stuff. It's affectatious. It's pretend.
Because if you look at, like, PewDiePie's first stuff, it's not the same as he is now.
Right. Yeah. It's become a character.
And there's a lot of good YouTube personalities. I follow, like, Emergency Awesome and some of those guys and Cosplay Chris and all those dudes. There's a lot of people who have the same information and insights, but you're going to watch the ones who have a good pace and keep it entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
And that's just the nature of the beast.
Right, exactly. So I think that even these acting tips for the kids that want to go into YouTube and have a YouTube career, they need some of this as well, and some of the life lessons, like be on time.
Yeah.
Go to work.
Don't be an a-hole.
Don't be a jerk.
Yes.
People don't like that.
Exactly.
Well, they do on YouTube if you're Logan Paul. But you can be a jerk once you get
And
paid.
if you don't agree with Colleen, comment below.
They're commenting already. No, I'm kidding.
They're commenting. I love Logan Paul. He's my best friend.
How many subscribers did you just lose? That's dropping.
So what's the quickest you've actually done a movie, like a whole movie?
So, like we said, Mahogany Sunrise was about 3 weeks, which was pretty breakneck. The reason that one felt harder is it was tons of locations. But one of the early projects, maybe the first feature I ever did, it was a horror film. It was called IT. I was an IT guy in that one also. There's a trend.
Like,
I missed my calling. And it's when they were renovating one of the old bank towers downtown to the Drury Tower Hotel, right?
Oh, okay.
So I think it was Rick Drury was his name. Anyways, the Drury family was nice enough to let us have the floors that were in the process of being demolished for as long as we needed. So we slept in empty offices. We camped out on site because it was one location for the whole movie, and we shot 3 shifts a day. And we were actually going to film a side movie in the evenings, but we were so exhausted that we didn't get around to it. But we shot an entire feature in about, I said it was 2 weeks earlier, but I want to say we shot the whole thing in like 8 days.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was breakneck speed.
Wow.
And the cool thing is, they're like, we're going to tear it down anyway. You can break interior windows, and you can put holes in walls, whatever. So
so cool.
Like we wrecked the place. We really did. But there was a scene. We had a big old, heavy old wooden office chair, and then there was a pane of glass going into like an executive office.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna shoot that as an exterior window and fudge it. So we throw the chair and it bounces back off. We throw the chair and it bounces back off. Finally, about the 4th take, we throw the chair and that chair just goes poof. And that window is fine.
Fine.
Yeah, the old heavy wooden chair shattered into like 5 pieces. Wow. So, the craftsmanship of our forefathers. Yeah.
Like, well, fine.
Yeah. So there's that then. You live. Rewrite.
Rewrite. We'll fix it in editing. It's
Oh
fine.
God. Oh, if anyone ever
this
says
is the
we'll fix it in
comedic part.
post. Yeah, right.
We'll fix it in post.
That's a big pet peeve. Don't. If they say we'll fix it in post, tell them no, you'll fix it now. Don't
You're
fix
like,
it
no,
post.
because then I'll get CGI Chen and I'll look like Shrek had a baby with Superman.
They'll pick all your worst scenes.
We fix everything in post.
Yeah, that was a big joke when we started out. Is there'd be something was like they just didn't get it, and they'd just be like, "Ah, we'll fix it in post," and then you move on. And like you're a new actor, you're like, okay, great, and you find it, you see it later, and it's just like
you're like, oh, that's terrible.
Abomination before the Lord. It's just terrible.
So are most things shot in order, or are they shot out of order?
It depends on the project, really. Normally, they're pretty out of order. My production partner and I, for New Americana, our approach tends to be shooting things more in order. And I say our approach, we've done so far, like a short film concept funding trailer for our next project coming. We're going to start next year, and then we did our 48-hour project together. But our style is sequential, mainly, but that's I think a bit of a rarity. I think most folks jump around.
Is that hard as an actor, though, to kind of remember where you are? Like, do you have to memorize the whole script?
You really need to know the material.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's something else they teach you. Free acting lessons. People normally make you pay them for this. It's just called the moment before. In any given scene, you don't just go into the scene. If it's occurring in the middle of the script, you need to be thinking, what were you doing the moment before? Whether it was written out, or if you have to make it up in your imagination because you've been off screen for a few minutes. But you need to know what your previous moments did to inform what you're doing then and there. So yeah, you got to be. Either way, you should be aware of that if you're going to try and do it right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Eric.
Ooh. El Cucuy. He's actually watching right now.
I love you, Eric.
It had nothing to do with it, Eric.
No, he's one of our friends, and it's so funny because he and I were doing a scene together for the Vato Rangers, and he was just struggling with his lines. Like, he could not get it down, and he apologized, and he must have looked at the script. He had the script. It was so wadded up and sweaty by the end, and he kept, like, looking at it and, like, trying to get the lines.
Poor guy.
And I'm like, just ad-lib at this point. Just say something. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm going to strangle you, dude. So I'm just totally calling him out, but I'm messing with him.
That's a really good point, too. Like, unless you have a director who requires you to be verbatim, the other thing I try to do is I try to get as close to the written dialogue as possible. I definitely get the spirit and the gist of the scene, but I don't try to go verbatim. I try to say it as naturally as I can. Like, if I know what the general message is, I try to just have a conversation with you. And I've seen actors struggle so hard to get it verbatim. They'll read typos.
Yes.
Like, they will try to fit typos in. I'm like, that's not a word.
And Eric has like a big personality, so I felt like if he would have just gotten like the gist of what we were going for and just been himself and put his personality, because the character is very much wrapped kind of in his big personality, he would have just done fine, but he was trying to stay true to like what the writer had done. And I was like, I don't feel like you need to do that. And so I think that's something else.
Yeah, make it your own.
Make it your own. Like, know where the writer's trying to go.
Yeah, honor that.
Know what you're supposed to be saying. Don't be, like, so far off script, right, that you're on another planet.
Well, a good natural performance that's not on script is going to be better than a terrible, choppy, unnatural, blocky one that is verbatim.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end, you're trying to really communicate with your scene partner and the audience.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
So.
I agree.
It's okay, Eric.
It's okay, Eric. His parts are always really good. I just like to give him a hard time.
Yeah. Yeah. So going into kind of like you said you're into the Americana Production?
New Americana
Production. So what does a production company entail?
A lot of beer. Most of our budget in our last two projects were probably beer budget. That's the only time I'm method is when my character drinks. But no, yeah, really, I mean, a production company is pretty much like-minded people who decide that they're going to get something done, whether they have the equipment or they're going to beg, steal, or borrow the equipment. It's really more the common vision than it is the assets. Because if you really want to get something made, you'll get it done. Like the pictures that I did before, the one where I decided to be a goofball, That was an old production company at the time called Ponderous. And say what you will, some of them came out a little rough, but the guy made 10 feature films in a year with no money. It was just favors and grit and gumption, and you know, I'm proud of my part that I played in that, because it was just determination. Mm-hmm. You know? So to me, that's what a production company is determination of like-minded people.
Do you hire writers to write script? Like, do you guys kind of come up with the overall idea of what you want the movie to be, or how does that kind of part work?
So I'm really fortunate in that my production partner is named, shameless plug, Trent Moran. My production partner Trent, he's a phenomenal writer. So generally what it is he writes and directs. We both kind of produce, bringing resources to the table. I've been acting, God, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so. So I'll try and bring my connections, locations, actors, whatever I can to the table. And then we both kind of throw stories. He's the writing genius, really, but we throw stuff back and forth until it's polished to where we feel good with it. So.
And then y'all are okay, I guess, since you come from the acting standpoint, you're okay with the ad-libbing and the actors putting stuff
Love
in
it. He encourages it. If y'all get a chance, if you find Wesley Blake on Facebook, that's me. If you go down a little ways, we are our 48-hour film project that won this year. And I won Best Actor, hey?
Congratulations.
Another plug there. It's called Day Monster, and that was our entry into the 48, and it actually won, so we'll be going to Filmpalooza in Orlando because of it. But that's one of our efforts together.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well, how does somebody in San Antonio get involved with that, with the 48 hours?
Yeah, the 48-hour film project, they have just about every major city has one. Look on Facebook for the 48-hour film project in your city. Again, if you're looking for ways to jump into acting, writing, directing, any aspect of filmmaking, get on a 48 team. It is like boot camp for filmmakers. Stay in touch. Get on the Alamo City Studios Facebook page and social media as well. Kerry Valderrama is a CEO over there, and he is phenomenal at letting people know what's coming in the community. He's really about the San Antonio filmmaking community. So yeah, a lot of it's just available on social media. Just stock.
Okay.
Pretty much.
That's good.
Yeah.
Some of the cameras that you've used for your earlier projects, where are some of the things that you've used back then?
Oh God, XL2s.
Yeah.
Remember those, like the old Canons and stuff. What was it, the GL2s and.
Because we got a lot of camera guys that watch the.
Yeah, gosh, everything was still on a digital tape, and I remember it was like, oh my God, he has a 3-chip camera. You know, like, that's amazing. And we were talking about that tonight when we started off. I said, as an actor, one of the best things that ever happened is LED lights.
Yes.
Because before we'd have these like tungsten
I can't breathe. It's so hot.
Oh my God. And when you're like doing super low budget indie stuff, like you have those old halogen work lamps, like the little handle.
Yes.
Holy crap.
I have a couple right over there that we used to use.
That we used to use.
Remember the welding gloves to move the lights?
Yes.
Whenever someone would have to like change a barn door or whatever, it's like, oh, yeah. Don't touch that for an hour, you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. And you're like trying to do a scene and just like sweat running down your face, and you have someone just dedicated to being the paper towel person and it's like dabbing you between scenes.
But like when you look at something like Evil Dead and the stuff that they did there, that they put a camera on a piece of 2x4, and then that was the shot that they used with it, and it just came out great.
Yeah.
And it worked well with it.
Oh yeah.
And you never know the kind of stuff that you can get away with that'll make it look better, and it's very low budget.
Yeah.
Do you see drones playing a big role in filmmaking coming up?
Yeah, so absolutely yes. We used one for our funding trailer, which I would love to be able to share with y'all right now, but I can't just yet. But we used one for some really dramatic shots on top of the studio downtown. So there was a scene where I was supposed to fall to my death, and or do I?
Or do.
But there was some great drone shots there. One of the competitors in the 48 this year, I can't remember I think it was called Outbreak or something like that, or Contagion or something like that. They used drones to great effect. They just leaned into it that it was a drone and had it that was a law enforcement drone policing the area, and just like it was brilliant use. Yeah, drones are gonna definitely play a lot into it. And then as far as just low budget, I love it. I love doing stuff without a whole lot of resources because you come up with the most creative solutions that you probably, if you just had money to throw at it, it probably would have been a little more watered down. But I think it can be a benefit in the right scenarios to have to work around.
Very cool. Well, Wes, thanks for coming by. We really had a lot of fun with you.
I really appreciate you having me.
It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it, and
I appreciate the advice that you gave to everybody.
Yeah, for what it's worth.
Great.
Yeah, there's a lot. There are a lot of people that will take that to heart and
so now you
really
can
do
act
something
as bad
with
as
it.
I do. The Wesley method.
Yeah. You start charging people for it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's what it works.
Apparently you can pay me in beer. That's what my partner does. Right, so.
Now we know.
Well, now we know.
We need a trailer.
We do. Well, thanks, Wes, for coming by. I really appreciate it. I'm Vince.
I'm Colleen. That's Wes. And Stuart's still producing.
Geek out, SA. See you later, guys.